Om Vasudeva Kusutam Devam Kansachanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum. Om. Adorations to Lord Krishna, the preceptor of the universe, destroyer of the forces of darkness, and bestower of immortality. Srimad Bhagavad Gita, 5th chapter, verse number is 21. And topic is the old topic. Oldest. The realization. God realization. At this stage, Gita is directing your attention to the highest attainment that your mind must have a good grasp of the picture of the highest attainment. Don't take it literally, there's no picture. Allegorical. Vahyasparsheshu asaktatma vinjatyatmani yat sukham sabrahma yoga yuktatma sukhamakshayam ashnute. If one is not attached to the external objects of the world, one enjoys the bliss of the self. Being united with Brahman, who permeates this universe, such a yogi experiences ceaseless bliss. It's the highest goal. First point, he who is not attached to objects, external objects. The entire world is called external. The self, the innermost self reality, that's the only intrinsic, internal reality. And then if you attain the reality, there is neither external nor internal. It's eternal. Now, when we talk about being detached from external objects, try to understand now in more detail. Whenever any object or any situation gives a sense of pleasure in the mind, the pleasure comes in various ways. By touching the object, by looking at it, by remembering the object, and developing fanciful imaginations about the object. So when we say detach from external objects, you have to understand the detachment, not just your hand is tied up, but you are mentally dwelling upon the object. And you are impacted by what you have experienced by the objects. You are also creating imaginations. Can I really get the object that you desire, or somebody, an enemy, is going to take it before you get it? I'm giving a lot of spicing about it. You're worrying about the object, dreaming about the object, thinking about the object, inundating your mind with the memory of the object. What happens to the real subject? Real subject represents God, your own self. Mind is so filled that it has no room for allowing you to see your own face, allowing you to understand who am I. And that's the predicament at the mass level. You're constantly dealing with vahya sparsheshu, external objects. Even if you are thinking of the stars, it's also external sparsh. You are touching the object. All this comes under the range of touch. You think of the object, you remember the object, you have desire for the object. All that is touch. Mind's involvement in external objects, even if you are just thinking of your body, it's also an external object. I'm taking you higher and higher. When mind is so attached to this external reality, put it in a very broad way, if your mind is so busy with understanding about the stars, about what the science has accomplished and how the progress is going on, your mind is so busy catching every news that breaks, and collecting the data of your forefathers, lots of, and internally developing a feeling, oh, how much do I know? All that comes via sparsheshu. All these external touch. A breeze comes, touches you and goes away. All this is just touching you and will freeze like a breeze. So therefore, while you are living in the world, all this you cannot give up. That's part of your reality. You start developing bhakti, devotion to God, and turn your attention to who am I. In other words, bring integral yoga in your life. Of integral yoga, bhakti and gana are the big highlights. And bhakti is the highest. If you are bringing love of God in your mental atmosphere. So all the vahya sparsh, all that you have described, in every one of them, you begin to add God within it. Why is such an object such a source of joy? Because God dwells in it. Why this dish tastes so good? Because God dwells. God is the indwelling reality behind your potatoes, tomatoes. I'm joking, but not really. Whatever is giving you happiness, allow your mind a little room, a little whisper. This is very joyous, but it's coming from God. So, the result is you want to hold on to God, catch Him faster. Be more and more God-ward. And that is, even when the mind is dull and looking for external objects, mind will be treated with a motherly blessing. You will not receive big, shocking situation. And if you receive, you will have the strength enough to bear with it and emerge free out of it. So, he who is detached from external objects, see that one statement has all this involved in it. Practice of detachment. You are thinking about it, you are worried about it, your mind is engrossed with it. That's all Vahya Sparsh. Otherwise, if you don't study deeply, your interpretation is, I will not touch anything. I will not smell, I will not hear. Clogs, put something in the ears, swab on the nose, and tie up your hands. But that is not so. Some degree of that is necessary, but that's not the real way of detaching. Detaching, of course, requires your internal understanding and internal love for becoming liberated, love for becoming free, love for immortality, eternity, for securing the goal of life. Love for God. He who enjoys the bliss of the self, if you are not attached to objects, then what will your mind do? No fun for the mind. But instead of fun, sun comes into your mind. A source of inspiration that you cannot imagine. So on one side you are lightening the load of worldly impressions, worldly involvement, how the mind is caught by the world. On the other side, opening to let in the light of lights. That means revelation of God. So therefore, when you begin to access your movement to divine joy, put in a very simple way, you have passed a dark night with cloudy days and thunderstorm, and you have been with ordinary lights around you. Now, what is waiting for you? The light of the sun. Storm has gone away, light is there. But all that you need to do, in spite of all the things you have gathered in your house, open your window. And don't throw away all the things. But allow that divine bliss, the source of joy, which is not within your room but coming from a divine source, All this I'm weaving to make you understand that no matter where you are, no matter what challenges you face, this is what you have to work out. How, in spite of all this, can you just allow a little crack to open your vision, allow your vision to behold, to find the breeze of God's grace and the presence of His luminous personality. Again, my tongue goes after allegorical terms. In brief, as the pressure of the world, pressure of load of these via external objects begin to diminish, also you have to understand all these external objects are in the realm of Maya. So you are not eventually going to lose anything. So as you are reducing the load, now you are internally enjoying a type of joy that you cannot find anywhere in the world. In yogic movement, you begin with yoga relaxation. Go further, you get into yoga nidra. Go further, you go into the practice of meditation, samadhi. All that allows you to have a channel from the divine source. So even though you are living a life of its problems and its realities, your inward vision is youthening, your body waning, the internal vision becoming brighter. You may contradict me and say, no, body is not waning, I'm just young and still. But no matter what you are, body-based reality is perishable. So as you begin to discover internal joy arising out of your prayer, out of your meditation, creating sattva in your personality, as you go on discovering it and understanding it more profoundly through your intellect, where it is coming from, not coming from the world. And if you want to secure it, body is not needed for it. You are not the body. All this I will go on explaining gradually. So, detaching from the world, no bahya sparsh, atmani sukh, inward joy, being united with Brahman. And now through that inward joy you are being united with the sun, that which delights the entire world. And more profoundly, that's the absolute reality behind the world of Maya. So being united with Brahman, united here is being attuned to Brahman. Brahman becomes your source. Your mind has no doubt about it. The source of all your happiness is not in the world where you have to go on hopping. Happiness that you acquire by hopping movement is not real happiness. It's a happening. As that internal joy begins to increase, your experience of that internal joy, you begin to see that source of joy permeates the entire universe. So no matter wherever is your source of happiness, no matter from whatever source you are or situation you are experiencing happiness, that happiness is coming from God who permeates the entire universe. Even some branches come and fan you in hot trip, who has fanned you? Not the tree, God. God is behind every experience. So that type of internal understanding will not come immediately, but you should have a progressive movement. And your life becomes more qualitative day by day. And once you come to a state of high quality, you have no choice but move Godward. Not with a helpless way, but with the type of, like black bee or honey bee, that goes after, buzzing after the honey, out of great delight. So it is not a painful process, but becomes a delightful process. And since you develop that vision, that Brahman permeates the whole universe, and every little happiness you are getting is coming from Brahman. Now the happiness that you are now experiencing, a deeper type of happiness, that is unbroken. All worldly happiness is transient happiness. It's never continuous, it breaks up. But this inward happiness arising out of Godward experience, which has two levels, love and wisdom, bhakti and gana. Those were the two fingers of Kaikeyi. That's the Ramayana. Then now what you experience, the joy, that is akhand, indivisible, ceaseless, inexhaustible. And what happens? Your understanding of your own self. Always mind has the biggest problem about how will I deal with things. If hurricane broke the roof, how will it? Don't take it literally, that's perfectly okay, because if you are facing a hurricane, you will be thinking about it. But I'm talking in an allegorical way. That whether hurricane is there or not, everyone is always has some time to worry about, worry about future. Now that you will not have the room for that worry. If mind becomes increasingly involved in enjoying, mind becomes a bee and the divine source within you becomes the honey. And this again is a progressive movement. Even when you come to enjoy that, doesn't mean that you will be perpetually enjoying it. You will be led to challenges. You will be led to develop endurance, patience. You will be led to learn lessons from the dull-wit mind, because until this stage, your mind has created lots of troubles, lots of negative karmas. So all that have to be handled, but inwardly you cannot develop a sense of despair, frustration. Rather, inwardly you will develop more and more trust that the divine hand, the loving hand of God is going to help you out. If you learn the baby psychology, baby sometimes wants to see a little troublesome situation. Because then baby has a chance to look at the face of the mother. And feel the affection showering over the baby. So your adversity turns to that type of allegorical setting. Otherwise, you are a motherless baby. ये ही संस्पर्शजा भोगा दुःख योनय एव ते आद्यन्तवन्तः कौन्तेय न तेषु रमते बुधः. The enjoyments attained by the contact of the senses with their objects are the source of pain. When you are enjoying objects, what's called Vahya Sukh, this external type of happiness. This happiness, this state of enjoyment is never innocent. It's a very troublemaker. You allow yourself, relax yourself. I'm giving a very crude illustration. Enjoying some delicacy. Each time you chew it is so joyous. And you went on doing half an hour continuously. You have to pay for it. Now we can figure it out. Similarly, living in the world, you are always expecting to have an enjoyable setting. And in that enjoyable setting, you want to just go on enjoying it. But your mind has now become trapped by raga, attachment. The more time you have given, the more attention you have directed. That to that extent, raga has captured your mind, attachment, inner attachment. And you have to pay for it. Since that has captured, mind has closed the door to higher joy. And raga will be answered by dvesha. Like will match up with dislike. The matching goes on endlessly. So therefore, all this the state of finding happiness in the world of time and space through and experiencing through mind and senses, this whole project is a source of misery. It is that misery that philosophical systems go after. What's the cause of misery? What is misery? What's the cause of misery? What's the method of removing it? And the state where all this is removed. Dukkha, misery. Dukkha hetu, the cause of misery. Hetopaya, the method of removing the cause. And finally, han, misery is completely destroyed. Using different terminology, these 4 points, they're called Arya Satyani. These are the Aryan truths. Keeping that in view, Adyantavantaha Kaunteya, all this Bahya Sparsh world has a beginning and end. In the beginning, you are shaken by thrill and joy and wonderful dreams. And something crashed your head. In between, you try to repair your head. Therefore, every movement is heading towards. All your attainments in this world have beginning and end. So face it with the understanding, therefore that is not your goal. So in a deeper level of your understanding, be settled that this is not your goal. And open your internal vision. That goal is within you. More surprisingly, that goal is your own self. The predicament of an individual is just like a reflected sun in a jar of water. A reflected sun has taken over the identity. I am the ruler of this jar. And all other jars are mine. Some are friends, some are enemies, and whatever. And it has created enormous problems. Every day, the water goes on shaking. The jar itself has its unstable situation. But from that state, imagine, reflected sun in reality is all the time that means the sun that watches over all these reflected suns and their miseries. Neither smiles nor weeps. That's nothing to do with it. But wherever the water becomes a little clearer, sun as if develop partiality in that pot. Sun shines bright. So, real delight, your mind ramate. You can have pleasures of the world depending upon your need, etc., but within the rational limit that it should not let you fall, and within the limit of your practical reality. But deep down you have developed vairagya and gana, that all this is like a big dream and they are going to move away. And it's not a negative news, it's something very thrilling. And therefore, nateshu ramate buddha, your ramate movement is deep delight. A delight that it's like you are going diving in something so joyous, you can't open your mouth. but you are enjoying it. Happiness that makes your mouth open, that's way wastage. Profound happiness, you cannot describe it. It goes beyond. That's called Ramata movement. Mind enjoying in such a way that you don't care to explain to me, look, something has happened, it has made me so happy. You don't go do that. It goes on, nourishing you internally. You begin to grow in a spiritual way. You become a Ramata yogi. The statement Ramata yogi means one who is wandering everywhere. But real meaning behind Ramata is one who has developed an internal source of delight. So no matter how things happen, you go on handling them being a channel of God, but your real connection is with God. And so you are not dependent or attached to external circumstances, not bounded with external conditions, people, and so forth. So you are a Ramata yogi. Whichever the way the breeze blows. Shaknoti haiva yahashodhum praksharirabhimokshanat kamakrodhodbhavam vegam sayukta sasukhi nada. One who is able to master every impulse of desire and anger, even at the time of departing from the body, is verily a yogi and a blissful person. Idea being refreshed, Shaknoti haiva yah sodhum praksharir vimokshana. Even before your body dies, attain this state. Don't leave it for after death. Karma-based expectation, yes, after death. Whatever karmas, good karmas you have not gained the fruit, it's perfectly rational to understand the fruit will come after. But this happiness that I was describing, the Atma Sukh, the joy that emanates from your heart, divine joy, that joy you should secure, not with the idea it will come to me after death, but it is here and now experience in your practical life. Rather, it will not be possible after death. After death, until you are reborn, you cannot do any self-effort. So, if your self-effort has to be purposeful, you have to do it in your embodied state. In brief, and a very simple way to say, don't wait for becoming enlightened later in some future birth. Don't develop the idea that it is not possible to attain enlightenment. See, three obstacles come in the mind. Sanshaya bhavana, asambhavana, viparita bhavana. Sanshaya, doubt. All that you are saying, is that really true? That you have to gradually, by listening and by your own experience, you begin to understand that all that you are experiencing, all that is being said by the scriptures is leading you to the truth. So you don't have any doubt about it. That Godward movement will give you freedom from misery. That state becomes settled in your mind, doubting mind begins to fade. Next question arises, will I attain this in this life? I know all my errors, even God may not know it. I'm joking. But just like, no matter how long darkness has existed in your room or in a cave, no matter how long, no matter how many spiders and cockroaches and scorpions have played their part, you don't have to count them or open the window. Let the light come in. And so the idea of impossibility blows away. That type of understanding has to come. Your Godward movement is opening the window to the light. So therefore, no matter what you have been, and how many karmas you have done in your past, all that have no meaning at all. You are not being led by karmic interpretations. You are being led by grace movement. So therefore, when sanshaya bhavana has been overcome by listening and satsanga and seva and many other things, asambhavana moves away when your mind, intellect has certain clarity and your subconscious becomes a little more purified. And when Upanishadic teaching, the wisdom of the Veda enters your mind, the sense of impossibility dissolves. Everything is impossible. But for you to become non-existent, that's impossible. So what did you say? Non-existent. The non-existent being impossible, then what is the end result? Existence. What is that existence? Sat. No matter what happens, can that Sat be taken away? Listen to the glory of that Sat through Satsanga. Relish it by coming to Chit stage, awareness. And finally, Ananda, dive into it. Third obstacle is called Viparita Bhavana. Viparita Bhavana is your simple illustration I give is we are looking into the mirror. Someone nearby asks, what are you seeing? What do you say? I'm seeing my face. You don't realize you are lying? You are seeing the mirror. Mirror first. Then your face reflected in it. But you ignore the mirror completely. In your own mind or even in talking about it. Similarly, what happens mind blended with mind, identified with limited mind. You ignore what underlies the mind. When you are watching a cinema show and you're deeply involved with an actor and he's acting, you ignore the screen. The screen is always there. So switching from picture to the screen, switching from looking into names and forms to the underlying mirror of pure consciousness. That will give you the idea. If you have not switched, then it is called viparita bhavana. Your mind is confused. Though you are watching, seeing constantly, yet you are not aware. And when anybody talks about it, says it's impossible for me to attain God realization. Impossible. But who is making you say all that? That pure consciousness within you. For that you don't have to go to big pilgrimage centers. Not a single experience you can have unless consciousness is behind it. So all this has to be figured out and meditated upon. And with this I will conclude. Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushti Vardhanam Urvarukma Bandhanan Mrityor Mukshiyamamritat Sarve Bhavantu Sukhina Sarve Santu Niramaya Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kashchid Dukha Bhag Bhavet. Om. Removal of atank, adversities, and divine love entering every heart to remedy their problems. Sabko Sanmati De Bhagwan, may all develop divine vision. Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushti Vardhanam Urvarukma Bandhanan Mrityor Mukshiyamamritat. Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushti Vardhanam Urvarukma Bandhanan Mrityor Mukshiyamamritat. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhina Sarve Santu Niramaya Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kashchid Dukha Bhag Bhavet. Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityor Ma Mritam Gamaya Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Shanti Shanti.